Welcome to Full Episode Friday, where we will release the entire interview with Debbie Fisher today. And so if you haven't seen any of the parts that we've released to this point, then you're in luck. You'll see them all on this episode right here. So we hope you enjoy. Have a great day, and look forward to getting your feedback on what you think. Well, welcome to Embracing New Life. We have one of our therapists that works here at New Life, Debbie Fisher, that we're going to be interviewing today, and she's going to be talking with us. So we hope you enjoy the episode, and we'll dive into it.
Yeah, welcome, Debbie. I recall meeting you many years ago. Don't remember which year it was, but I recall that you were coming into the field after, we'll say, a fair amount of life experience.
Yeah, you can say that.
What drew you? What brought your attention into, I'd like to do this kind of work?
Well, since that was a later in life thing, actually it really wasn't a later in life thing. It just came to fruition later in life.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not going to go through my whole life story, but really starting out with my family, I come from a long line of helpers. A long line of preachers. My dad's a preacher, my mom's a teacher, and a lot of serving in the family, serving people, serving the church. It was a way of life for me growing up. My grandparents were servants, serving other people in their professions and at home. My great-grandparents, the same thing. So it was a way of life. So wanting to help people was something that I have always wanted to do. With that, I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in fashion merchandising. And I chose fashion merchandising because I love clothes. I absolutely love clothes. That was really probably the main reason. But it was an avenue to help people. In my view, I wanted to help women in particularly, but I wanted to help people in general feel good about themselves, feel confident, feel worthy.
Yeah.
And it was an approach from the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was kind of a unique approach, but I loved it. I live that. I dress according to either how I feel or how I want to feel. And it's very helpful.
Yeah.
And I just love clothes. So there's that. So I did that. I was in retail management for 8 years. That was my career for a while. And then life experience continued to happen. I was blessed to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. While I was a stay-at-home mom, I did childcare out of my home, and I had a house cleaning business, which I love the people that I provided childcare for. The parents, the kids, love them. I mean, love them all. I love people. The people I clean for, love them. Cleaning, not so much. Not my cup of tea. You can ask any of my family. Not my cup of tea. So when my youngest went into school, and it's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm not going to clean houses for the rest of my life. What am I going to do? So this is kind of I think it's an interesting piece. I was praying about it, and God brought to my memory something that happened when I was in middle school. When I was in middle school, my dad came home and told me about a family friend. He was in high school getting ready to go to college, and said he decided what he wants to go to school for. He wants to be a psychologist. And I remember thinking that's got to be the coolest job in the whole world. I did not pursue that I'm not even sure why at that time. But once I had that memory, I knew this is what I'm going to do. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but I do have my master's degree in professional counseling. So that led me to this field, and I have not turned back. I love this. This is where God has called me, and I just love what I do, and I love my clients.
That's awesome.
And you are well equipped for this field.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And part of your role, you mentioned your mother. I understand you're also a grandmother.
I am a grandma.
Yes, I see the smile.
Yes, it's like the coolest thing in the whole world. Sorry, kids. It's cool being a mom, too. But I do love being a grandma.
How many children, grandchildren do you have?
We have 5 adult children. And with that, I have 2 daughters-in-law and 1 son-in-law. Want to get them in there.
Uh-huh.
And then I have 5 granddaughters and 1 grandson.
Nice.
They're all awesome.
Yeah.
They're all wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I will say this too, our youngest son was born with Down syndrome.
Mhm.
So we are involved in Special Olympics. My husband coaches the different sports that my son is in. And so he has coached all of our kids because we are a sports family. So he's coached our other kids in soccer. So yeah, it's kind of fun. It is a lot of fun.
Neat.
And I will recommend, if you're having a bad day, find a Special Olympics event and you will no longer have a bad day.
Yeah, that I can picture what you're describing.
Uh-huh.
Great. In your work here, you see a lot of different types of situations, but there's one area that you really seem to thrive with. And we've worked with some scenarios together now. And what is it about couples work that you like?
I love marriage. I love being married. I just have a heart for married couples. I think being married is incredibly challenging. Well, anytime you get 2 people in a room, it's challenging.
Yeah.
But God has really given us a beautiful picture of marriage and that relationship, and we get to experience that here as married couples, but also the church in relationship to Jesus too, him being the groom and the church being the bride. I think it's just it's a beautiful picture, and my heart breaks for people who are suffering in their marriages. Another reason that I wanted to do, to be a helper and to help people in their suffering. And I just think that in the Christian world as well as in the world, the divorce rate is so high, and that just breaks my heart. That is not the way it is meant to be. And there are so many times where, with some help, those marriages can turn around. And to be able to be a part of that journey, to provide that help, whatever that is, healing from trauma, healing from wounds, navigating, moving from reaction to response, being able to get in your rational mind versus your emotional mind, and not be so reactive. Whatever it is, to be able to be on a journey with these couples is an honor. And it is something that I am very passionate about.
It's an honor to walk alongside with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You mentioned move from reaction to response. What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but in my own relationship, my buttons can get pushed pretty easily. And when they get pushed, I typically do have some reactions that are very predictable about me. And we all do. And those reactions are how we learn to adapt with our world, how we learn to adapt to difficult situations. And usually it's not good. It doesn't go over well. And the response I get, in my own relationship is a reaction, from my husband's stuff. And, we can go back and forth. And guess what? It doesn't go anywhere positive. And I see that with my couples there. I'm no different than they are as far as that goes.
Sure.
So to be able to, one, identify where's this reaction coming from? Typically, it's not coming from what's in front of our face in that moment. Typically, it's whatever we have experienced in the past similar that we haven't been healed from comes right into the present. And so what's in the present is now bigger than what's actually in front of us. And so we become reactive. Well, when we are in that place, we are actually in our subcortical brain. We are in our limbic system. We are flooded with emotion. And to have a healthy response, we need to move from our subcortical brain to our prefrontal cortex, where our rational thought is. Another way of looking at that is when we're back here, we're in our adaptive child place. That's like our teenage self or our wounded child self. When we come to our rational thinking, we're in our wise adult self. I love viewing it that way because I need pictures, and that makes sense to me. And so to move from being that kid that's responding, that kid part of me, to that wise adult part of me, then I can express how I'm feeling. I can help my clients express how they're feeling with their spouse in a healthy way and help the spouse receive what they're saying. And then that changes the whole dynamic of the conversation. In fact, it moves it into a conversation versus an argument, storming out, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I've heard it said, especially in arguments, seeking to understand instead of win. If you can remember that, it's just so foundational to the de-escalation, right? The calming down, coming back to your adult self, and allowing just not reason, because it's not that emotion is bad, but it's just allowing yourself to get to a state where you can actually process information in an accurate way and not just react like you're saying.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about too is something that is really important in the work that I do, and that is moving from the place of an individual perspective to a relational perspective. When we're in that individual perspective, we are being defensive. This is, you got to hear me, you're not listening to me, or I got to be right, or it's about me. But in a relational perspective, it's okay, I see you're hurting, I see you're upset about something, how can I help? We're a team, how can we do this together? Okay, it's not easy to get to that place, especially when you're heated, but to be able to calm down, to be able to do that, to be relational, changes the whole dynamic of the marriage or the couplehood.
Most definitely.
And so when we're in that just reactive place, it's kind of like two people fighting for survival. Right. And boy, if I'm that threatened, I'll do anything to survive.
For sure.
And then later I go, oh no, look at the damage that was done.
Right.
So what are some things that you will do with a couple to help them move out of that fighting for survival place?
That's a really good question. First, some skills training. Some physical skills, such as one, practice the pause. There's power in the pause. You do not have to say something right away, because number one, you're probably going to regret it as soon as you say it anyway. So just pause. Don't say anything. And if you decide you still want to say it, you got plenty of time to say it. So one, practice the pause. Two, something therapists say all the time. So, sounds very cliche, but breathe. Take a deep breath. We say that because it works. You need to get oxygen into your brain. So taking a deep breath, a breath from your diaphragm, that gets oxygen in your body, gets oxygen into your brain so that you can start to operate out of your prefrontal cortex, your wise adult self, and not be flooded with those emotions. So take some deep breaths. Then try to check your body. What is your body amped up? If it is, calm your body down. One of my favorite, very easy things to do is put your hand over your heart. Put your hand over your heart and your nervous system will start to calm down. And then there's other strategies that you can do as well. But that's my favorite.
So there's several strategies that you'll teach both parties, both the husband and the wife, to bring their arousal down.
Right.
But they're likely to say, the problem isn't my arousal, the problem is what you're thinking.
Right.
What do you do with that?
So, that is a very good question. Doesn't always go well. Well, and why would it? But it is, so for me in session, it is listening to each person.
For sure.
Because their stories are valid.
For sure.
Their perspectives are valid. Even if the other spouse doesn't think their perspective is valid or right, It is
Mhm.
valid.
Most
It's their
definitely.
experience.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have them practice the pause. I'm going to have them do those things in session because they're going to need to do that in session while I'm hearing the other person's perspective. And one thing I do is to remind when I'm hearing I'm hearing the wife's perspective and I see the husband, over here getting a little riled up, I'll turn and I'll say, this is her perspective.
Yeah.
This isn't your perspective. This is hers. I will get to you in a second because I want to hear yours too. Both are valid.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily correct, but they're both valid because this is your experience. So I want to give each person the opportunity to be heard because that is incredibly important.
Yes.
In that moment, I am not going to take sides. I'm not going to just like, oh yeah, so what she's saying is 100% true. Well, no, but this is her experience and that's very valid.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to have that equal time for both, whatever that equal time means. It doesn't mean 5 minutes for you and 5 minutes for you. It's what do you need for me to hear?
Yeah.
Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
It gets into a phrase that you'll use a lot about observe, don't judge, right? Like you're
Yeah.
really wanting to get to a place where you can
Yeah.
just experience the here and now in a non-judgmental way. And it's not to everybody's experience is valid, like you said. And a lot of people think valid means truth means it's right. And it's like, it's not accurate. Right. Like experience is experience. You can't do anything about that. But like, let's observe this, not judge it.
Yeah.
And then move towards a healthier process.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly.
And then with the observation we can describe.
Yeah.
Which is different than a truth declaration that's universal.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So
we've talked, when we get together and staffing and talk, I mean, I am a very direct person and I'm a very direct therapist. But in my directness, what I am talking about is exactly what you're talking about, Dan. I want to speak truth. And I want to speak to the behavior. I am not dissing a person, their personality or anything about them. Yeah. I honor that. I respect that. I don't care who they are. I'm going to, but I'm going to speak to the behavior
for sure.
And I'm going to speak that truth because you're coming to me for help. If I don't speak the truth to you, how is anything going to change? I'm not judging you for that. This is what's happening. And, from my training and expertise and experience, these are the gold nuggets that I have to give to you. You can do with this what you want, but I'm here to help you navigate that. That's kind of my perspective.
So in being direct, you're also kind.
I certainly hope so. That is the goal. That is my intent. Compassionate,
Compassionate.
Yes.
And loving.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for many, there's a fear that if you're direct, you're unloving.
Yeah.
And you're bringing both and holding them together simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that goes to what you have said, Dan, about the definition of love is seeking and doing good for the other person. Well, telling them the truth in love is good for them. I'm talking about it in a therapeutic sense because you don't have to say everything to my spouse. I'm not going to point out everything. There's no reason to do that. But, in this, for me to be able to speak the truth, it is for their good, for the change. But then again, they have autonomy. They can do what they want with that. And I will help them if they want that help. Yeah.
While you're doing this type of work, do you ever feel a pressure that you're supposed to be the referee and declare which one of the couple is right?
Feel the pressure? Yes. Succumb to the pressure? I try really hard not to. Really hard not to. Because this isn't a battleground. This isn't a fight. Yes, they can try to fight, but I'm going to shut down the fight. Because that's what's getting them stuck in the first place. That's part of the problem. So it's like being in a lab, kind of, I get to see what's going on outside of session and then work with them on how to change the way they're interacting with each other. Now, in that, it might require some deep healing work, some trauma work. I do that with the couples, with the spouse present. because I do believe there's healing in relationship.
Mhm.
We are not islands.
That's right.
I mean, I am an individual therapist as well. I love working with individuals, but there's so much power when I'm doing some really deep, whether it's inner child work or whatever it is, parts work or whatever, with one of the spouses and the other one is a witness to it.
Mhm.
There is a tremendous amount of healing that happens, and understanding where their spouse is coming from, why they're hurting, that they're not, possibly they're not intending to hurt you.
Yeah.
This is just what they know and why they know that. I mean, it can be incredibly powerful.
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing about including both of them in that process is in that deep, vulnerable spot, you're actually providing an opportunity for them to connect in a safe way that's
Right.
like they haven't before.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it can be powerful on both sides, or for both of them, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's awesome.
We've mentioned on the podcast many times that in order to connect, we have to be vulnerable, but it's
Mhm.
dangerous to be vulnerable.
Right.
We're talking about safety right now.
Yeah.
What are some things that you do in your couples work to facilitate safety? Safety for each person to become vulnerable with the other.
So that's a really good question. One thing that I do is I do interrupt a lot. And I will tell the couples that I will interrupt a lot. And it's not out of disrespect. It's because I want to shut down going into a direction that one is the same old, but two, that could be harmful to either one of them.
Yeah.
So I want to shut that down. I want them to know that I'm there to support them. I'm there to help them. I'm there so that they don't continue to hurt each other. Having said that, it's very easy to hurt each other, even when you're not trying to hurt each other. And, perception has a lot to do with that too.
Totally, yeah.
But I'm there to help them do that. And that typically has been very helpful, that they have been safe. Also, I don't want to rush anybody into being vulnerable when they're not ready to be vulnerable. I make that very clear too. And another thing that I will tell clients, if I ask you a question or we're going to do, I suggest that we do something. If you don't want to do it, tell me no, we don't have to do that. You are the one in charge of that. I'm not going to push anyone faster than they want to go or further than they're ready to go. I have too much respect for people to do that. So I think that can provide that sense of safety as well.
For sure. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, sometimes I will even instruct a couple, don't talk about what we talked about in here, it's so raw, until we're back together again in this place.
Yeah.
And I think we all see many times couples will find that the counseling room is a safe place they look forward to being able to come back into.
Yeah.
And then they can learn how to have that safety
Right.
in other places.
Right.
Yeah.
I tell when I'm working, with individuals, working with trauma or whatever, and with couples, if something comes up between session and it's overwhelming, or you want to talk to your partner about it but you don't know how, put it in a box with my name on it and put the lid on the box and bring it into session, and then that is a safe place that we can unpack that and deal with that. And I had a client this week that's like, Debbie, I couldn't wait for today. I have a lot in my box. I just kept putting stuff in my box. I'm like, good, that's great.
But even that sense of safety increases when I realize, I can actually do that.
Yeah.
And not only can I contain it, but I can also bring it out and deal with it.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize they can do that. And maybe partly because you see they're stuffing it, sweeping it under the rug. Not a healthy containment where it's okay to not deal with this right now, but to deal with that in an appropriate time and situation. Which I also teach couples to do that with each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if it's a heated, they're getting heated about something because, it happens, then, to take those breaks, and I'll teach them how to do a healthy timeout. Take those breaks, but then to come back and talk about it. And we talk about what does that mean and how long do you wait and all of that. We navigate through that. But part of what continues the argument for many couples is the fear that we are never going to come back and talk about it, or if we do, it's going to be another brawl.
Or I found too that what perpetuates the cycle is that almost without exception, I can't think of any couples that I've worked with where this was different, but there's always a pursuer and a distancer. So like there's somebody that just desperately wants to fix and reconnect as quickly as possible. And then there's usually somebody who just needs more time to process and figure stuff out. And yeah, I've seen that perpetuate the cycle because somebody's just like, they're just like the dog following you around, you know, until the other person breaks down and they finally do it. And then it's the same cycle, you know? And so, the pause to say like, to give this person time to process and calm down, and also give this person time to calm down, but also know that the pause isn't just a pause and sweep it under the rug, but we are going to come back together and talk about this. We're not just doing what we've done historically. We're just trying to get out of the crazy cycle and do it in a healthier way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say I have worked with clients who are both distancers.
Sure. Yeah.
And I have had both pursuers. So, there is a lot of variety in there. But I do think I am guessing that is the most common, is the pursuer and distancer. And why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
We fit together like
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a phrase that we often think about with children, a timeout. Could you share with us how you would use a timeout with a couple?
Sure.
And so what are the ground rules with a couple?
Sure. So the timeout I use is really from Terry Reel's work. I know, no surprise. I like his therapy.
Good stuff.
He does. He is got really good couples therapy, relational life therapy, which is really the framework that I use.
Yes.
And so his timeout is, and this might be a little nuanced from me using it from exactly what he says, but one, whoever recognizes that things are kind of getting out of hand, and it might not be you getting out of hand, doesn't matter, but whoever recognizes it, take the time out. Use the timeout sign like in sports, or say I need a timeout, whichever works. Then the conditions that are understood with that timeout is you both go your separate corners, wherever that may be, bedroom, car, wherever that is, for about 15 minutes. Could be 15, 20 minutes. And in that time, you're both doing what you need to do to, one, calm down, two, think about, okay, what's gotten me all riled up? How can I come back to this conversation in a healthy way? How can I listen to my partner and understand where they're coming from? So, we work on, individually what that looks like. And then come back. Now, I think I differ from Terry on this one, where I'll say if it's been 15 minutes, then you guys can have a conversation if you both feel that you're in a headspace to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But whoever takes the time out is the one that comes back. They're the one that checks in with the other person.
Most definitely.
They took it, they're coming. And the other piece that's important, when you say you need a timeout, you say I need a timeout. You don't say you need a timeout.
Very important.
Yes. Do not ever say that. I need the timeout. So then you come back and check in with the other person. I would really like to talk about this. How are you doing? Is that okay? And if it's okay, then you continue that conversation.
Totally.
If not, then, or if you are the one taking the time out, if you are too upset about it, you check in after the 15 minutes and say, I need more time. I will check in with you, and you double it in a half an hour. And you do the work that you need to do. Now, if you're taking a half an hour, you come back and you're not going to talk about the situation. What you're going to say is, okay, tomorrow we need to sit down and talk about this. So what works good for you? And you guys come up with a time within 24 hours to talk about that. Or as soon as you can. I mean, within that, if someone's going to be out of town, it won't be 24 hours, but
yeah.
you know, as you can, because then you are confident that at some point you're going to talk about it.
Yep.
And then, and you can talk about it with cooler heads. Ideally, then you can continue on with your night together because you know you're going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live in an ideal world. I don't know about you. That can be challenging. Yet at the same time, knowing we are going to talk about it, so I can put that on the shelf and, you know, do what I need to do tonight, and I don't have to be snippy with you or upset. Yeah.
So I heard a couple of really important features there. One was the one who recognizes we're escalating, this is going the wrong direction. That doesn't mean I'm escalating, but we.
Yeah.
And I need a timeout.
Yes.
I don't mention anything about you.
Yes.
Second, identify when I'm going to come back. Third, I come back when I say I will.
Yes, exactly.
So important.
Yes. I'll tell people, you know, set a timer on your phone.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, because don't do like I did with my kids. I would put one of my kids on a timeout. They'd end up falling asleep. I totally forget. An hour later, there they are sitting, sleeping wherever they were. I felt terrible. Don't do that. Don't do that. Learn from my mistake. A timer is a good reminder.
So I've noticed some couples are very fearful that if we do this, we'll never come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once, though, that they've gone through the process, they start to realize, oh, this is really helpful.
Yeah. Another thing too is the person who what we would call the pursuer, the one who is really afraid that you're not going to come. You the spouse is taking the time out. Oh, they're not going to come back, so they're waiting and waiting and waiting. You know, 14 minutes has gone by. Oh, they're not going to come back, and so then they pursue. Then they go in like, don't set your timer. You need to trust that they are going to come back, and you let them come back. And if they don't, that's on them, and we've got more work to do. Yeah.
But it's a good illustration of how threatening that disconnection is for people.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, sure.
Because I mean, you think about 15, even 30 minutes. I mean, not that long, but just the drive to have to reconnect.
Right.
You know, it's just so powerful.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Right. And the anxiety just goes up and up and up and up and up. So to your point, Dan, too, I think once couples do this a few times and see, wow, I really can trust that you'll come back, and I really can remember to come back, then it works really well, and it does do a lot in changing the dynamic of the relationship.
Yeah, it's a more enjoyable process than it was. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
That increases a sense of safety in the relationship.
Yeah.
Many couples are terrified that if it's not resolved right now, something horrible will happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you see that, because it is common,
sure.
What are some things that you do in those kind of situations?
Well, one thing, like, what would be so horrible? What is it that you're anticipating is going to happen? Often when that comes out of their mouth, then it's like, oh, I guess that's not so bad. Right. That can also open up deeper wounds. You know, often childhood wounds. It could be wounds from a previous relationship. I mean, it could be lots of things. That can open that up, which is a really great opportunity to do some healing work. So that's incredibly beneficial. Being able to just kind of navigate that, and even being able to share those concerns with their spouse there, so their spouse may have the opportunity, if it's accurate, to alleviate those fears. And it might not be, that they might be accurate. I mean, their fear might be valid. And for their spouse to know that, to speak to that and recognize, oh yeah, I do that. Okay, I'm going to try really hard not to do that. That's really good work in session for us to do. And then that can alleviate some of those. It's, you know, and it's okay if you feel nervous about that, or if you're not trusting. That's completely okay. Why would you? This is something new. This is something different. So there is that level of anxiety that is just going to be normal. So I do want to normalize that with people. Also, the other thing I talk a lot about too is not expecting perfection. Because there will be a lot of, well, we did it this one time, but she did this and he did that. I'm like, well, we go to our default. We need to rewire our brains. That takes time. It's not a one and done by any means.
Takes a long time.
So we need to have grace for one another and recognize nobody's going to do this perfectly.
No.
No,
Not
we
at
don't.
all.
Uh-huh.
One of my favorite stories is with Susan Johnson, who was a marriage and family therapist, big in our world.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing one of her trainings, and I love what she said. She said that she and her husband were having a moment, a not great moment.
Uh-huh.
And she said, the therapist inside of her was saying, don't say it. Don't say it. You're going to regret it. Don't say it. And she said it. And she said, and I regretted it. She's like, even though I do this for a living, been doing this for 30, 40 years, I fall into those traps too. We all do. We all do. It's not about perfection.
No.
It's about, being imperfect and loving each other though we're imperfect.
Yeah. The normalization is just so important, because we all feel like, we're the only couple that struggles with this,
Right.
And it's like, we're all cut from the same cloth.
Yeah,
So
right.
I like to encourage people with the reminder that the vast majority of our processing with our brain happens subconsciously. There's just so little that we are aware of that if you're thinking about the weight of all of that subconscious processing and all the neural networks are already laid down that your brain just naturally follows when a trigger occurs, that you're fighting against years, if not decades of conditioning that is, you just got to be patient and kind and compassionate to yourself and work it like you would if you had a goal of running an ultra marathon. You have to put in the time and the effort to be able to do it. But with dedication and intentionality, you can get to a different pattern.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot of time.
Right.
And to normalize that, because like a lot of people, we live in a society, right? If I have a credit card and an Amazon Prime account, I can have almost anything to my house in 2 days, maybe even today if I hit it perfectly.
Right.
So we're just so conditioned to I can get it almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
That human growth and development does not occur that way.
Yeah.
It is just a slow process. And to normalize that for them and the fact that, hey, fighting's normal and it's just going to take time to do this differently is, helpful to me. Hopefully it's helpful to them too.
Yeah. That fighting part, the arguing part. The one thing John Gottman has said, reading some of his stuff, he's also, but he's been in couples research for 40, 50 years.
Yes,
He
yes.
is one of the main grandfathers of couples counseling. One of the things that he says in healthy marriages, those healthy marriages, because he has researched so many of them, they're not without fighting.
No.
They're
Right.
not without arguments.
For sure.
It's about how many times they try to make repair
Mhm.
during the argument and
Mhm.
after the argument. It is that attempt for repair.
Yes.
I was thinking about that, and Interior Girls work too. He talks about that all couples are in one place. It's harmony, disharmony, repair. Goes back to harmony, disharmony, repair. Goes back to harmony, disharmony, repair. Where are you? Some people get stuck. People that I see are usually in disharmony
Mm-hmm.
or repair. And we're trying to repair when they're in session with me. They're not usually seeing me if they're in harmony. I have had a couple of couples who have seen me in harmony because they want to stay in harmony.
Yes.
However, that is unrealistic because you're two people. There's going to be some disharmony somewhere. So we'll talk about how are you going to navigate that, those arguments, disagreements, whatever that is. So I think that's a really good perspective of what are our expectations.
Yeah.
Our expectations are not of 100% unity, harmony, no arguing. That's not realistic. And really that arguments, the disagreement, that can be kind of spicy. It brings different perspectives into the relationship.
Growth occurs through that.
Right. And you can grow closer together. If you're not disagreeing, I don't personally think somebody's being completely authentic in there. But when you can be your authentic self and say, I really don't agree with that.
Yeah.
You can learn and grow closer, and iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
You can bond more with that. So it's a different way of looking at it.
It reminded us something that is attributed to Ruth Graham, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but she said something along the lines of, if your relationship has no conflict, one of you apparently is not necessary. And I'm appreciating how you're describing two unique people learning how to be close to one another.
Yeah.
It is a learning. It is a
Yeah.
growth process that
Yeah.
has conflict, which isn't bad, but maybe uncomfortable.
For sure.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
Right. I do think we do have this perception that conflict is bad. Conflict
Totally,
is not bad.
No.
It can get bad.
It can.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it in of itself is not.
No.
It is an opportunity, like we were saying, opportunity
Uh-huh.
for growth and understanding.
Uh-huh.
It is an opportunity to come together as teammates and partners,
Mm-hmm.
to be relational. If we don't have any of those, then we're not growing our relational muscles.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So we could understand that contentment and peace tend to happen when our expectations and reality are congruent.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so one of the things I'm hearing you describe is part of working with couples involves developing realistic expectations.
Yes. Yes.
Of not only the other person, but of a relationship and of myself as well.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of individual growth happens in relationship.
For sure.
Yes.
And a lot of relational growth happens in relationship should you choose to accept that and
Mhm.
pick up that mantle. It does, and it can be a wonderful thing. My husband has stretched me. He
Mhm.
has really stretched me.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't always been quiet in those stretches either. We are what you would call, we're both fighters. It's our personality. We have strong personalities. But that's part of what drew us to each other, because
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
appreciate that about each other. But the same thing that you appreciate, sometimes you don't like a whole lot either.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
that's what that individual perspective too, but I'm right, you're wrong, or me, versus, okay, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Those are things that we all have to learn, which,
Uh-huh.
that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
He met us where we were at, or he meets us where we're at,
Mhm.
and he comes alongside us, and we don't have to clean ourselves up and be perfect for him to love us.
Mm.
It should be that way in relationship too.
For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll describe the sense of thinking about needs, that he has needs, she has needs, and the relationship has needs. That there's three entities.
Mm-hmm.
In your work with couples, do you talk to them about caring not just for myself and you, but caring for the relationship?
Yeah. Yes. And sometimes that's kind of a hard concept
Uh-huh.
because we're in America and we are very much an individualistic society. So I keep coming back to that.
Yep.
But that is, I mean, I even, I think it's before I became a therapist, I bought a book by a pastor, His Needs, Her Needs. I don't think I read very much of it. I mean, it's a good book, but I don't think I got very far. If I did, I don't remember because it was a long time ago. But I mean, I think it's good. It's good for us to know what each other's needs are.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think what you're talking about is very good to step back and look at, okay, so what is healthy for the couple?
Yeah.
And what is healthy for our relationship? So I do try to, help us step back and talk about that. And in that, her needs are important. His needs are important. So recognizing that, setting yourself aside for a second, recognizing the other's needs are important, then what you're doing is you're tending to the needs of the relationship.
Mhm.
So it's really more than about being selfless. Because you're actually being selfish while you're being selfless. And I don't mean selfish in a negative way. I mean, you're helping yourself get what you want and what you need by helping the other get what they want and what they need, which then allows the relationship to blossom and bloom.
Yeah.
So rather than like a transactional model, I'll give you this if you give me that.
Right.
In love, we're seeking to do what is good for other and for us.
Yeah.
And that works out to provide what's good for me.
Yeah.
that is in some ways in an individualistic culture counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Yes.
We expect if I don't fight for mine,
Right.
I won't get anything.
Right.
But we see in caring for us, we get what we need.
Right.
Yeah, I think too. It also helps people understand that, like, for the other person and for the us of the relationship, they do have an active agency part to play. Like,
Yes.
they're not just a passive
Right.
participant in this. Like, they can actively, meet somebody else's needs or actively invest intentionally in the relationship. Like, they just don't have to sit there and, well, it is what it is. Like, they have some agency in being able to help this thing move forward in a healthy way as well.
Mhm.
That's a really good point.
Mhm.
Yeah, because a lot of people do feel helpless in their relationship.
Yeah.
Because he's not changing. If he doesn't change, then
Yeah.
I'm stuck in this.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, I don't know if the situation will change, but your internal self can
Yes.
change.
Totally.
You can live well
Yeah.
in the midst of the relationship
For
you're
sure.
in. And in that, things can change.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
They might not.
Mhm.
Odds are they will.
And you can change.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I
Oh,
like that sense of agency, that
Mhm.
there is empowerment in
For sure.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I'll often identify with a couple our opportunity. How do I live well
Mhm.
with this imperfect person with these features?
Mm.
Mhm.
And of course, the spouse is saying, how do I live well with this imperfect person
Right.
with these
right.
features?
Uh-huh.
But moving out of transactional,
Mm.
how do I shape you to be my wish fulfillment?
Yeah.
Never works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Into how do I learn to live well with you?
Yeah.
As when things are going well, how does that person learn to live well with me?
Yeah.
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 And that requires knowing each other more deeply.
Yeah. Right, which then leads you to a level of intimacy.
Right.
Where if you're transactional, there isn't intimacy.
No, it's always a
That's
deal.
not there. And the beauty of
Uh-huh.
a marriage relationship is that level of intimacy. Being able to be in this relationship that is unlike any other relationship that you will ever have.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other relationship like this,
That's right.
nor should there be.
Right.
And to be able to nurture that and to be
Mm.
in that level of intimacy is just a small picture of what our relationship with Jesus, our relationship with God is like, that intimate relationship.
For sure. Yeah.
So this is how a marriage of many, many decades stays very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as we continue to get to know each other, we never arrive. And as we start to get closer, I know you more deeply, then you grow more on me. And now I got
Uh-huh.
more to learn.
Right.
And it doesn't get boring.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
No.
No.
We're dynamic. We're always changing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And don't you want to know the other person more
Mhm.
deeply? In those changes. I know I'll work with couples who's like, well, he should know what I want. We've been married 40 years. He should know. I'm not going to tell him because he should already know. I'm like, that is a setup for failure for both of you.
Absolutely.
100%. No, he should not
Yeah.
know. Have you told him? Oh, I've told him for years. Like, was he listening? Maybe, maybe not. But
Mhm.
to your point, we do grow. Things
Yeah.
do change.
Yes.
And to be honest, me personally, I don't want to have to assume what's going on in my husband's head.
Oh.
I don't want to. That's too much work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want us to be able to tell each other, share what's going on in our heads, share what's going on in our hearts.
Right.
And
That's where we connect.
Yeah.
exactly.
The research on this is very interesting. We humans are quite confident we know what's going on in other people's heads,
Yes.
and we're very inaccurate.
Yeah. For sure.
We hang on to those rare moments that we got it right
Yeah.
and we were close.
Yeah.
We hang on to that like it's always that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I learned that with my husband. I thought for sure he was thinking a certain thing. And we had talked about it, and for some reason, the light bulb went off on me. I think it was because I was, at the time, learning more about cognitive behavioral therapy.
Uh-huh.
And I was, trying to figure out, okay, what are my distorted thoughts in here? What is the evidence that these are true?
Uh-huh.
And I came up with all of this evidence that he loves me, that he cares for me, that he is doing the best thing for me. And it's like, it was a light bulb that went off like, wow, for, I don't know, 15 years, I've been thinking something that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it occasionally could have been true, but it's not true, because what
Yeah,
I was thinking of was that he didn't love me. Like, okay, that's ludicrous. And it was ludicrous.
Mhm.
You know, just
And
because.
he wasn't able to prove to you
Right.
because our assumptions are going to govern our beliefs.
For sure.
Yes. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Confirmation bias.
Yes.
Yep.
And for
Yep.
me to come up with that, you know,
Uh-huh.
aha moment, he had absolutely nothing to do with it. He didn't even know.
Right.
In fact, well, if he watches this, he'll know. But he may not have even known what was going on in my head,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Right.
And you're right. He wouldn't have been able to
Right.
prove that to me.
Yeah.
But when I could really be honest with myself in
Yeah.
a situation, and I love doing that with couples.
Yeah.
I love challenging that with couples.
Yeah.
I do. And to see the aha moment
Yeah.
that happens can really change the relationship.
For sure. That's one thing I talk with couples a lot about too, is just the narratives that they carry, because
Mhm.
those narratives define the
Yep.
the bias
Yep.
that we have. And that confirmation bias drives the way we interpret the data. And so you get sucked into this loop when you're not careful of like, yeah, he doesn't love me, she doesn't love me. And then everything is twisted to reinforce the belief that
Right.
he doesn't love me.
Right.
And if you would just communicate that or challenge that narrative, you know, or offer different interpretations of the data, like you can get past it. But because of all that subconscious processing that occurs, if you don't get in and dig into it like you do with couples, like, yeah, it can create devastating results, you know, that
Yeah.
Oh,
are just-
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, couples work is challenging.
oh yeah, for sure.
It is challenging. You've got more than one person in front of you.
Mhm.
It is challenging. But it is so rewarding.
Most definitely.
Yes,
it
it is.
just is to see couples come together. Now, not everybody does.
Well,
Not
sure.
everybody
Right.
wants to do the work, and
Yeah.
you know that's fine.
Uh-huh.
They can make that choice. But when they do, and
Hmm.
that transformation is it. Like I said at the beginning, it is an honor to be a part of their journey.
Yeah.
It really is.
Mhm.
For my couples or the individuals that I'm working with,
Yep.
that is how I view it. It's an
Mhm.
honor and a privilege to do this work, to be a part of their lives in some small way. I wouldn't trade that for anything. It's a blessing from
That's
God.
awesome.
I sometimes think of marriage as the laboratory of love.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is there's this one relationship where people in front of God and others say, I'm not going to quit. Now, how do I learn how to love? Sometimes the harder part, how do I learn to receive love?
Yeah. Mhm.
How do I learn how to forgive? How do I learn how to have peace with an imperfect person?
Mhm.
And as we're running all these experiments and working it out, that's generalizing to the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
And we're learning so much about ourselves and about being a person
Yeah.
inside that relationship.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
The laboratory of love and the petri dish of problems. Yeah. Couples, yeah. Relationships, it's the greatest of times and the worst of times. All our best moments are in relationship, and all our worst moments are
No one
typically.
can hurt us more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically, no one can hurt us more than our spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, we can many times find our greatest sense of being known
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in that relationship as well.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Well, I come back to, what you say so often, Dan, is that we are created to know and be known.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We are created to love and be loved. And in a marriage relationship, it is very evident that that's why the marriage is so important. One reason why it's so important, because we are created for that type of intimacy, that type
Mhm.
of relationship. And that to know and be known by our spouse is huge. To love and be loved by and for our spouse is it's so innate in us. It's part of who we are.
Oh, for sure.
That
Yeah.
it is really incredible when couples come in and want to work on their relationship. I admire that because I know they're coming in, they're going to do the hard work.
Mm.
It's down and dirty. It is not a walk in the park by any means. It is hard work. I did have a husband come in and it's like, marriage should not be this hard. I said, who told you that? I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but it is. It's hard work. It is gratifying. It is a blessing. It is beneficial, but it is hard work.
For sure.
But it is 100%, in my opinion, 100% worth every piece, every effort that you put into it.
I agree.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, that is great kind of concluding point of the podcast. I mean, we'll definitely have you on in the future again.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
We
You'll be
appreciate
back.
you. Yeah,
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming in and sharing your background and just one little part of what you do as a counselor with couples, you know, so.
Well, thank you guys so much for inviting me and making it as painless as possible.
Perfect.
All right.
Embracing New Life is a production of New Life Resources, a Christian counseling clinic in southeast Wisconsin, whose aim and goal since 1976 has been to provide high-quality professional counseling, psychological, and consulting services from within a Christian framework.